Welcome back, everybody. Derrick Soo, your East Oakland advocate. Well, a viewer asked last night, how would you stand up in an MMA fight? Well, before I answer that question, let's talk about MMA and my style of fighting. My style of fighting is literally a highly skilled street fighter, kind of like Mortal Kombat. And that's how I train, for real street combat. And the difference with UFC and MMA is that there are rules, and those rules present a lot of limits. In street fights, where I'm accustomed to, there are no limits. Everything is a go. And that means even his friends can join in. You start out with a fight with one person and then you gang your ass kicked by six. And that's normal in a street fight. You don't see that in a UFC or MMA. That doesn't happen. But in the streets, it does happen. Or the person pulls out a knife, or he pulls out a gun, or he pulls out a chain. What are you going to do? In the case of a gun, you're not going to outrun bullets. So you better be able to be in close enough like me. I go in and attack. I go after that gun. And when I say I disarm a person, I literally break that person's arm in the course of getting that gun away from them. So my style of fighting is very different. And I had the opportunity back in 2003. My stepson was attending school in Arizona, and for some strange reason, he decided that he wanted to try UFC MMA fighting. And so one of the top UFC fighters, Chuck Iceman Liddell, had a studio and a training center there in Phoenix. And my 6'10" stepson, JJ, decided that he wanted to try MMA UFC. And I looked at him when he first told me about that stupid idea. I said, yeah, it's not for you. You're too big. You're too big and too stupid. You don't need any more blows to the head. And I mean, he's a good kid, believe me. Well, he's a man now. Let's see, he is going to be 41 this year. So, but I did train him in Kung Fu, some Kung Fu. Before he stopped, for whatever reason, he did receive 14 hours of training, and he had the one opportunity on day 15 to actually use what I had taught him. And he defeated three opponents his size at the time. And he was tall. He was a big kid for his age. So his size was 2 years, almost 3 years ahead of his actual age. And so much older kids with more street smarts and whatever over him. And they tried to take his bike, and he was pretty confident in his skills. But then, when he came back and told me of what had happened, he said, "Man, I was so scared." Do you ever get scared? I just kind of looked at him. I said, "Well, for me, I don't. But when you're new at this, yeah, you should be scared because you don't know what the outcome is going to be." And so he did tell me he did lay out all three, and I had him take me back to where the fight took place, or actually the attempted robbery, because the three kids were trying to steal his BMX bike that I had custom built for him. I had about $5 bills into this thing, so it was a really nice BMX. And so anyway, he got it into his head that he could possibly be one of these super fighters, and Chuck Liddell happened to be close by and also one of his favorite fighters. And so he started training with him. And again, like I said, I had the opportunity to meet him because my wife, his mother, we had the opportunity to go down there to visit with him, and we caught him at the gym, and I was introduced to Chuck Liddell, and we had a good chat. My stepson had told him about me and my style of fighting and what I do for a living. So, and Mr. Liddell and I had a great conversation, and we talked about the differences, and for his students that were present at the time, we talked about the differences in real combat versus MMA, UFC fighting style fighting, where there are a lot of limitations. And I have almost my entire lifetime of street fighting. I proved myself. I know all the dirty tricks on the street. In fact, I use the same dirty tricks on those very people, and they never expect it. And one of the things that I can say from all my street experience, so from all my years of experience, what I've learned is in a real fight, there are no rules. MMA, UFC, too many rules. What do I mean? Okay, well, in a street fight, kicking somebody in the nuts is legal. In the ring, that's illegal. Breaking somebody's leg at the knees, illegal. UFC, MMA. Street fighting, it's a showstopper. Attacks to the throat, right here, illegal in MMA. Showstopper on a street fight. Ripping an ear off a person, doing better than Mike Tyson. Now, not chewing an ear off, actually ripping an ear off. 100% legal. And part of the show-stopping fight on the streets. Can't do that in MMA or UFC. Poking a person, gouging their eyes out, not legal. There are a lot of blows that are not legal. There are a lot of kicks that are not legal. And yet it's all legal in the street fight. And that's where a person like me is disadvantaged in MMA, because I have to keep in mind I can't do certain things. And to the MMA fighter and the UFC fighter, you may know a few of them, but you don't know all of them. And a streetwise fighter will 9 out of 10 times whip the shit out of a MMA UFC fighter who's not completely used to dirty street tactics. 9 out of 10 times. I've seen it. I have absolutely seen it. And unless you are trained for Mortal Kombat, like I am, at all times, using the dirtiest of the dirtiest tricks in the book to win at all costs, you're going to get your ass handed to you. So, answering that question, how would I do in MMA? Well, like I told Chuck, you'd probably use me as a mop to clean the ring with, because I am disabled by using half of my tactics are eliminated by the rule book of MMA and UFC. Whereas you come into my world, you are disadvantaged by having lack of knowledge and lack of use. So that it's a draw. But if the fight is on the street, yes, you're going to get a few people with some MMA, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu background, getting the advantage on some of these criminals and perps. But these are not trained criminals and perps. These are just wannabes, mostly the street thugs. And but you get into a real nasty fight with a street bully, street thug, criminal. It's a very different story, especially when his friends join in, because I've had that happen to me many times. And one of the examples that I can talk about where I was taken by surprise, but my backup, came to the rescue. This scar right here in 2014, 3 teens from Antioch used a baseball bat and they were trying to kill me because it came out of nowhere. It was 9 o'clock at night. It was dark. Uh, I was just getting home from walking my dog, Pandora. She is my American Staffordshire Terrier. And out of nowhere, I see this shadow coming up, and my natural reflexes were to put my hands up and absorb it, but I couldn't get them quite up enough and strong enough, but it was enough to keep that bat from breaking my head open. It was bad enough that it broke the skin open all the way to the bone, and I was pouring blood. And when that happened, my dog, Pandora, she went after the person with the bat and got a good groin shot on him. I mean, if you know Amstaffs, they're in the pit bull family, and she's trained. She is a trained protection and guard dog, and so she did her job, and she latched on to homeboy there with the bat, and was working at making him a gelding. If you know what a gelding is, yeah, that's what she was doing. And at the same time, his partner kicked her, but that was enough distraction so that I could get back up on my feet and back into the fight and save all of us. And I seriously damaged all of them, and Pandora seriously damaged one. But that's what happens in a street fight. There are no warnings. There's no signs that an attack is imminent. But if you are faced off with a person who is getting loud and he's coming in at you, that's your go signal, not freeze. You don't freeze at that point. You have to have, as soon as the encounter begins, the argument begins, one of the best things to do is work at de-escalation. De-escalate the situation as best as you can, back out of there if at all possible. But if you're in a situation where you are backed up against the wall, you have nowhere to go, you better be that cornered rat, as they say, that cornered animal, and fight with everything you've got, and no holds barred. I mean, you use anything and everything. Improvise weapons. You can use your belt, the belt buckle, to strike people. It's a flailing weapon, kind of like nunchucks. Same thing. It's a flailing weapon. That's what that belt buckle is for. Or you can use it as a slapping weapon, on the other end, on just the strap. And then you can use it as a device to deflect and also gain advantage by just simply wrapping the person up and then choking them out with it. But there are a lot of things that can be done. And then you have to use dirty tactics in a fight. If they have you in a head clinch, what you have to do is use this forearm in an upwards motion in his nutsack and get him to break that hold. And then at the same time you do this, you're trying to lift him to throw him over and off you, so that you're already in a ready position for the next opponent. Because believe me, there are always a next opponent. And then sometimes they bring weapons in, and you have to be prepared for that. And that's where a lot of these scars on my arms came from blocking blades. And then, where's that? Yeah, you see the double stab wound right there. Knife fights. So you have to be prepared. And being prepared means that you also have to know how to protect your vitals and what can be used as a weapon. Here in your arms, this is all bone. This is all bone. Your elbow, all bone. And chances of the blade penetrating very far, it's just going to be superficial. And so that's how I deal with a lot of knife, you know, kicks, knee blows, knee strikes, head, forehead. You know, a lot of in a fight, nobody ever expects, you know, the dragon's kiss. So it comes out of nowhere, and you know where I'm aiming for. I'm using this patch of my head right here. I'm coming for your eyes, your nose, right here between your nose and your mouth, and I want to avoid your teeth because I don't want any teeth marks in my head. But you know, that's where I'm coming for, and I do it so fast and so hard. Most people don't get back up, and that's the difference with a street fight. In a street fight, there is no tap out. You know, your opponent who's attacking you, he's not going to listen to you say, okay, I give up, I give up. No, he's going to keep doing harm to you until he's done. And so, same thing you have to do as in Mortal Kombat. You have to make sure your opponent is unable to stand. In MMA, UFC, typically that's who wins, the person who can't stand up. So that's about the only similarity that we have, just that in a real street fight, that person may not be breathing anymore because they may be shot, they may be stabbed, they may be so brutally beaten by the opponent that it's unsurvivable. And so you have to keep that in mind when you're accosted, when you're in a fight on the street. You fight with everything, like you have everything to lose, because you do. When you're in a fight, you have to go all in. And that's how I fight. I go all in. I am one of the nastiest, dirtiest fighters out there. And that's how I've always been. I make sure it is such an experience for my opponent that they do not want a second helping of me. And in 58 years, I have not had a single person come back looking for a second helping. And I hope that never happens, because if they survive the first time, believe me, second time they will not survive. There will only be body bags, because that's the street rules. If you're able to walk away once, take it. You know, take that loss and just learn from it. But if you come back for a second helping, expect to die, because that's what happens in a street fight. You come back on that opponent a second time, it's to the death. And that's how I treated management of my homeless camp in East Oakland. You wanted to take over my camp, you have to kill me, or you have to injure me and so severely beat me that I can't stand up and I can't fight. But if I'm still alive, I'm going to be your biggest nightmare ever, because I'm never ending. And my stepson threatened me, you know, when he was young and dumb, and said that he would harm me. And I said, oh, well, I can make it very difficult for you, because I don't need to sleep to get even. You do something, you know, believe me, I'm going to get even, because that's how I work, and that's how I was trained. And again, should never expect a street fight to be fair, because it never is. You start with one, could end up with 6 on you, or a weapon being drawn on you. And there have been many times that bullies and criminals had tried to taunt me to taking my holster and my gun off my hip for a fight. I said, no. I know better than that, because they didn't know it, but I was 20 years counterterrorism. I trained and specialized in urban warfare. Urban warfare. I know how to fight you and an army by myself and destroy you. MMA versus Mortal Kombat. Yes and no. Yes, I'd have my ass handed to me by an MMA fighter if I had to fight in a ring with rules and regulations. And if that were same fight to happen out on the street, no rules, no regulations, I'd mop up with that MMA fighter without any doubt whatsoever. So hopefully that answers your question. Um, there's no comparing the two because they're so unalike. Only thing that they have similar is that they're a blood sport. Uh, one more bloody than the other, you know, but that's it. So hopefully that answers your question, and it's a yes no on that. There are no absolutes on this. No one is any better than the other. So thanks for joining me today. We'll be right back.